Here we are, it's Longhope Regatta day and the boats are being rigged for sailing. Here we've got some of the committee: Angus Hadle, Bertie Gillespie, Michael Johnston getting ready for the start. There's Ronnie Sinclair in the raid, also in the committee, Robbie Gillespie and Audrey Cameron. And now we're in the store on the pier where the sailors are being briefed as to the course for today's sailing. Here we have the yachting world class catamarans being launched, and they're interesting because the first two were built by local men, Donald Thompson and Jim Taylor, way back in the early 60s, and they're still giving a lot of fun to the sailors. It's nice to know that all the yachting world catamarans except for one are back here in Longhope, and there's a nice shot of the three of them. Here we see the hobby cat being launched. This is an altogether different type of craft from the old yachting worlds. It's much faster and of course much more expensive, and you'll see later the difference in the speed of the two classes. Here now we've got various different classes just running the line waiting for the start. They will all be starting at different times for the different classes. This is the starting committee, ready to start the race. We're much indebted to this men who come out year after year to do the timekeeping and keep it all running smoothly.
3, 2, 1.
And there we have a nice shot of the first boats crossing the line. This is the start of the catamaran race, and the first ones over the line, as I said before, is the Hobie Cats. Very, very fast boats, and behind them are the yachting worlds. But they're no disgracing themselves, and they're making good headway. Here we have a shot of the boats coming back in the bay with North Wales coastline in the background. There's an albacore flying its spinnaker, with the wind filling its sails, followed by a local mirror dinghy.
We got Castaway again, didn't we?
Aye, they'll come back up. Ah, here's Audrey going again. Well, she should make it this time.
I can make it.
Yeah, mate, don't worry. It's fast enough.
He's going. Right. He seems to be able to get the weather or get off the weather.
Yeah. That's it, right?
I don't get lost in That's the best I've seen.
There we have a good shot of the cats coming in, and you can see one of them beginning to fly its hull. We're told that this is the time when the catamaran is going at its best, and it takes quite a bit of skill to fly that hull.
Eh? Isn't yet some way, Billy? Oh yeah, that'll be her. Yeah, that's the other one. The Hobie Cats do by that. He hit somebody out here and he had to take a turn back.
That's it.
Here we have a locally owned boat skippered by Lee Thompson. He has just purchased it for this year's sailing. It's nice to see a young fellow taking a keen interest in sailing here in Longhope. Here we've got a nice shot of the boats in the North Bay doing that course that I've mentioned before, the figure 8, whereby they go down over the start line to the wing and across to Gray's Point, and then up the North Bay to below the Peary Kirk and across to the Lies, then back through the gate again at the pier. This makes a better spectator sport as the boats have passing the pier more often. In regattas before, we always had the course right down the bay, around Crockness Buoy, and of course the spectators didn't see the boats until they came back over the line, and we felt that this was a better course for the spectators. And here we have the catamarans going back down the bay for the second time round the course. And here we've got a lovely shot to show you just how fast the catamaran is going in comparison to a snipe. That's certainly not disgracing itself, but you can see here that it's powering away. It's very, very fast. Here we have a nice view of the hull being flown, as I mentioned before, and obviously not much room for error at this stage. Oh dear me, the first casualty of the day, Stanley Thompson and Alexander Sinclair being towed in. As you can see here, we've got the boats tacking to go back down through the gate, to go back down the bay again. This is a local boat skippered and crewed by Laura Johnston and Lorna Hadle, both keen sailors. They've had a few drookings this summer at the point racing, but it doesn't deter them one little bit. Here we've got the boats coming back through the finishing line. This is a laser dinghy, single-handed, quite a different boat to handle, I understand. This is the all-comers race that we've been watching, so it's all different classes starting and finishing at different times. So it's a bit confusing.
That's another finish, John.
And here we've got Robbie and Fiona Thompson coming in their catamaran. As I said earlier, this was a catamaran his uncle Donald built in the early 60s. Here we have a Wayfarer dinghy and a snipe coming through the finish line together. And here we have the boats coming back to the pier, and the boats are hauled up on the beach. I think they've all enjoyed a good day's sailing, and I'm sure the sailing will continue for quite a while tonight when the sailors have a dram in their hand. They will be reliving the day's events. And here we are back in the store again. The prizes have been given out by Amy Cameron, the Regatta Queen for 1999. And it's rather nice that she was the Queen while her dad Alistair was the Commodore of the Sailing Club this year. Now Alistair's given a case of beer to the crews of the safety boats in recognition of their help during the year.
We're really pleased with it. And I hope you've had a good day. And as Michael's reminded me, there's a dance tonight. But before that, if you want, there's the pub or the club. There'll maybe still be bits to eat up there. Yeah, it's a pub and help yourselves and have a dram with us.
In the middle of the group of spectators is Jimmy Clouston. He has enjoyed his day's sailing, and it's interesting to note that Jimmy and his wife sailed for Scotland in the Commonwealth Games, and is now coming forward to deliver a thank you address to the members of the Longhope Sailing Club.
Before you all head off, can I just give a vote of thanks to the Longhope Sailing Club today. They've managed to lay on a superb wind, and basically it's been a first-class regatta, absolutely first class from start to finish. Good course, good wind, good food, everything's gone like clockwork, and a really friendly atmosphere, so give them a happy vote of thanks.
Last night.
Very good, very well, Charlie.
This is Longhope Lifeboat leaving Longhope Pier to take part in exercise line-out with Hoy Head, Anglian Monarch and Oscar Charlie.
003 degrees, 02.982 west, is that correct, over?
Here, Robbie Thompson, second coxswain, is at the helm. Longhope Lifeboat is named Sir Mark Saitkin II and has a top speed of 17.5 to 18 knots. The mechanic, John Budge, is passing over crew details to the Coast Guard in Kirkwall. Deputy Second Coxswain Alistair Cameron is reporting to Robbie Thompson the position of the Hoy Head, where she is disabled and requiring a tow after an engine room fire. This is the lifeboat just passing Crockness Buoy. This is the boat's radar being used to plot the Hoy Head's position off the east side of Floughing.
If you could vote and stand by the vessel at present, the rescue helicopter is in position and the Anglian Monarch will be there shortly. So if you could stand by the casualty at present, over.
That's the Hoy Head lying disabled, awaiting for a tow.
Helicopter to bring across two personnel to you. That'd be very much appreciated, thank you. Break, Oscar Charlie, this is Anglian Monarch. Anglian Monarch, this is Oscar Charlie. Copy that, we'll be picking up your personnel and we'll transfer them to the lifeboat and then transfer them to the Hoy Head, over. Roger, that's copied. My speed at present through the water is 14 knots. Are we okay in this direction for you? Roger, yes, that's all copied. We'll turn around. Thanks very much.
That's a salvage tug Anglian Monarch passing Neviskerry to take up position for transfer of crew to helicopter Oscar Charlie.
Oscar Charlie, Longhope Lifeboat, go ahead. We request that you go future winds at about 15 knots. We'll transfer them to you, and you can transfer them to the Whitehead, over. Findland Coast Guard. Findland Coast Guard, this is Longhope Regatta. You want us to steer 185?
This is Oscar Charlie approaching the lifeboat to transfer crew to the lifeboat, which will then transfer the towing crew to Hoy Head to assist in rigging the tow line. This is the winchman being lowered to the lifeboat to take charge of lowering operations. That's the two towing crew of rescue tug on the lifeboat and the winchman being hoisted back into Oscar Charlie. This is the lifeboat coming alongside Hoy Head to transfer the towing crew who will assist the Hoy Head's crew in rigging the tow line. lifeboat is steaming at full speed to carry out crew training with Oscar Charlie. Here, the winchman is preparing to be lowered to take charge of crew members being lifted off the lifeboat. The Anglian monarch was put on station in Orkney and Shetland waters to assist in any maritime emergencies. She is run by the Coast Guard, who hire her out from Clyne Towage. Here the lifeboat is coming alongside to embark District Controller John Levitt of the Coast Guard to transfer him to Oscar Charlie. Now the hoy head is under tow and the lifeboat is proceeding at full speed to meet up with Oscar Charlie. This is Derek Thake, the first of the lifeboat crew members, to be transferred back to the lifeboat from Oscar Charlie. Here, Paul Tiny is lowered back to the lifeboat. Finally, Lee Thompson is lowered back on board the lifeboat. Next we have the winchman and District Controller John Levitt being transferred back to Oscar Charlie on completion of the transfer. The helicopter will proceed to Kirkwall Airport to refuel prior to returning to our base at Sunbury Airport in the Shetland Islands. On completion of a successful exercise, the lifeboat returns to station at Longhope Pier to refuel and be ready for service.
Early morning, 27th November, the ploughmen gather at Longhope for the annual Walls and Hoy Agricultural Society ploughing match. Before starting, the competitors draw lots to decide what flat they'll work on, then set up a guideline to help with the fearing. Here, Matthew Budge and his father John are doing just that. It's important to get the fearing straight because it's the base for the rest of the ploughing. This is Matthew marking the scrat for his fearing. He is the youngest ploughman on the field and is competing for the first time. His father took part between 1964 and 1982. Keith Dempsey works at the fish farming but has taken a day off to take part in the match. Helpers are Judith Robertson and Eddie Dunnett. Keith has ploughed a few times before and is improving each time. Matthew and Keith are ploughing in the one-way section. Andrew Sinclair is ploughing in the longboard class, helped by Alan Eisbester. Ian Robertson in the general purpose class started at matches in 1968 and has won the cup a few times along the way. Don Sutherland started ploughing at the age of 14 and has never missed a match since. He won the overall cup back in 1981 but doesn't practice enough now to take it seriously. Oldest on the day, general purpose section. Here he is setting up his scrat and making a no bad job of it. The first rubber wheel tractor came to the island in 1946 and was at Crooting. Before that, there were steel wheels and spade lugs. Big tractors nowadays means that the ploughman can't alter the plough unless he gets off, so here John is doing the adjusting. The aim of ploughing is to have little or no grass showing, so sometimes a pretty bit of tidying up is needed. Spectators are always welcome. Here, Ewan Nicholson lives next door to the field, has taken his lasses out to see what's happening. This is a wheel camp buddy at ploughing matches. Malcolm Robertson is one of the few men left on the island who has ploughed and competed with horse. He won it outright in 1951. For many years he helped his son Ian, but is just a spectator now. Dawn again ploughing with one of the four Dexter tractors on the field. Cabs are handy when it's cold, but no so easy to see the wheels. The first tractor ploughing match in Orkney took place at Snelster in 1947 when the Bailey family were there. Ronald Sinclair, general purpose class, helped by his brother Alexander, is just making a start. He was late on the field because of a slight technical hitch. Turning the handles on the plough alters the depth and width of the furrow. The helper keeps a keen eye on the fur. Competition is supposed to be between the ploughmen, but there's also a strong rivalry among the helpers. Barry Sinclair is out to see who his opponents get on. Barry took part in matches up until 1961, and Alan finished competing in 1976. Ronald and Alexander are throwing back the scrap because some folk think it marks for an interfering. Alexander competed in and won outright all 3 classes at the Ploughing. Lee Thompson is ploughing in the longboard class. He first ploughed in 1991. He should be away back to sea but wanted to take part in the match. It's a fine sight to see a line of tractors coming down the field. Barry ever watchful in case anything needs sorting. Many hours of practice have gone in before the match to make sure that hopefully everything goes right on the day. Malcolm is always willing to give a bit of advice. Lee again, doing some adjusting. Judges Arnold Mathers and Keith Marshall are over for the mainland. I'm no lip reader, but I would think that Ian is explaining where the different classes are working. This is a set of drags. Usually made of steel and lead, the drags are tied onto and dragged behind the plough. The purpose is to put a finish on the longboard ploughing. They put a fine shine on the fur. The match usually takes place in the spring, but bad weather prevented it from happening then. It got colder as the day went on, but the showers held off until after most of the work was done. There was no match in 1998 because of the wheat. Looking goodly, the practice has obviously paid off. A bit of tidying up for your helper. Matthew getting it to turn over fairly well. The other new ploughman on the day was Kevin Thompson, ploughing in the one-wide class. His helper is Angus Hadle. He took part in matches up until 1959. A bit of wait is sometimes needed to get the plough in the ground. Angus has great patience to help the youngins coming into the ploughing. Angus's daughter Lorna regularly takes part in the match, but couldn't manage this year. The judges continually check how things are going. This is Don's 40th match, and he sees no reason why he shouldn't keep going for a while yet. As the day goes on, the ground is gradually getting blacker. Don't think you'll get a cup today though, Don. It's important that the ploughman keeps up his liquid intake while his helper does the routine maintenance before getting going again. It would seem that even on the ploughing field, a woman's work is never done. Ian and Dawn are the only two ploughmen working on the field with no helpers. Ian is managing to make his usual tidy show. No matter how hot the competition, there is always time for a tin of beer and a blether. It's unusual to see so many Dexters working together. The oldest one on the field date back to 1958. It just shows that there's still a place on farms for the peaty tractors. Over the years, some of the tractors have fared better than others. Big Andy's is just like new. For someone who has done very little ploughing, Kevin's making a pretty good job. Oops. The judges walk over the field and look at the ploughing for every angle. Among other things, they are checking out the fairing, the straightness and evenness of the first and the finish. Walking up and down can get a bit tiring, so Scott Johnston hitches a lift on Kevin's plough. It's been a long day, but the work's nearly done. Coming into the finish, a bit of adjustments needed. Barry's doing some tidying up with the mulfer. Then a backward glance to see what it's looking like. Ronald was overall winner on the day and he won the General Purpose Cup. Andrew won the longboard class and Matthew was judged winner in the one-way section. Ours is the only island still holding a ploughing match, so let's hope with the young ones coming up, it'll keep on going for a lot of years to come.
So here we are at Rackwick just before 11 on Sunday, June the 13th, 1999, where the competitors and supporters are gathering for the start of the 14th annual Hoy Half Marathon. The Hoy Half Marathon Day, with its events for all ages from 5 years upwards, has been held annually since 1986 on the second or the third Sunday in June. The Half Marathon is a unique, prestigious event and indeed the largest of its kind in the Northern Isles. Every year it attracts over 100 entrants from all over the UK, with the occasional visitor from overseas. A great deal of planning goes into the day, and special sailings of the Hoy Head and the Thorsvoe bring a considerable number of competitors and spectators over from the Orkney mainland to join the locals, especially for the events. Everyone congregates at the school, where they can change and are registered and are issued with their numbers. And then the whole field is bussed up to the start in the beautifully desolate and lonely Rackwick Valley. The whole idea started 15 years ago, when a group of us, sweating after the exertions of a games night at the school, we were eagerly rehydrating in the Linus Bar. And we got to speaking of the old days and the way that the Rackwick folk used to walk to the Hoy Pier and down to Linus and South Walls long before there was a road. Down to the shop to trade saltfish for goods, to the Linus Pier or Riser Mill, or simply to socialise. They would walk over the hills, over the Napatrowie Glen and Withygill. Often they would carry back such provisions as they could not produce for themselves, such as sugar, in heavy packages, and they thought little of it. So the idea of the night was to have a half marathon from Linus over the hills to Rackwick. What an event! However, in the cold light of the next morning, the logistics of marking the course, providing drinks, or even of rescuing anybody who was lost or injured seemed horrendous. But from just outside of Rackwick to the school proved to be 13.11 miles. On a half marathon day, we always have had events for young folk from 5 to 17 years, which are always popular. Time for the final stretches. It's almost 11 o'clock. And off we go. Here our timekeepers, carrying their precious cargo of 6 stopwatches, make their way ahead of the runners back to the school to await the weary finishers. The middle of the field is already beginning to stretch out after most of the Rackwick Valley. The valley is 3.5 miles of mildly undulating road, long enough just to get the pace right and the breathing before the long 3.5 mile climb up to the Bring and the Water Ahoy. There are no houses here. In fact, the first house to be passed is after 10 miles at Riser Farm. Just a lonely silence beneath the Ward Hill and the dwarfy Hamus, broken just by the wail of the wind, concentrated breathing, and the measured step of trainers on tarmac. And of course, all sorts of people run here for all sorts of reasons. Some are especially nationalistic. And so the hopes and agonies and sheer doggedness continue. Even for the doctor, who with his various arthritic bits should long since have given up his trainers for a Zimmer frame.
You're not supposed to speak to the video.
We always have a good entry of women competitors of all abilities, running their own challenge and frequently raising large sums of money for their chosen charity. The Hoy Half Marathon always attracts a variety of people from far away, and this year is no exception. Here David and his daughter Karen from Essex plod just ahead of his sister Lizzie, the doctor's wife, who is 50 today. Behind her is brother-in-law Ernst Meyer from Switzerland. And still they keep coming, the joggers and walkers, plodding along at their own pace. Only 10 miles to go.
It's a bit rotten to be on a hill.
The Water Hoy at 7 miles is just over halfway and the highest point on the course. Here is Adam Ward from Edinburgh, last year's winner, setting a punishing pace ahead of Alistair Cook, who holds the course record. Adrian Askew in third place is our most consistently successful competitor. He won the first in 1986 and has been placed in every race ever since. Graham Harkus, another strong, consistent Orkney runner, just keeping in touch in fourth place. At 8.5 miles, the leaders are really showing their strength and stamina. With Withygill and the upper reaches of the Lyra Burn in the background, they have just had an easy mile downhill to the third drink station at Lyra Bay. But now there's the 3/4 of a mile up, and just when you think you're at the top, it gets worse round the corner. However, they're almost at the beautiful Peggle Bay, with its old Letherby Bridge and native trees, and only 4 miles to go. Meanwhile, back at the school, timekeepers Tony Morris and Mabel Besant, having double-checked their 6 stopwatches, they await the finishers. And here comes Adam Ward, winning for his second successive years. Just look at the stride and the speed. Who'd have thought he'd run over 13 miles? Well done again, Adam. And with the Williburn Valley Stompers belting out their foot-tapping jazz, Alistair Cook, second overall and first veteran home. Raises his right arm in salute. Good run, Alistair. Here's Adrian Askew storming home again in third place. In the first 3, as always. In this, his 14th Hoy half. Time to tear off the tags from the race numbers so they can be timed and authenticated before being passed into the computer room. Graham Harkus, 4th this year, checks his watch. Always a consistent, strong competitor, Graham. Who knows, he may be the winner one day. The initial paperwork of checking in the runners and accurately recording their times is quite onerous. Total attention to detail and double checking just has to be. Behind the scenes, it's all happening. The organisation and backup that is essential. There's Raynet, with their expertise in radio communications, keep the organisers in touch with every stage of the race. There's the Red Cross. They're always at the ready to deal with any problems. Precious few, thank goodness. In the kitchen, the Guild are keeping everybody's inner needs satisfied. The Williburn Valley Stompers are playing their little harp